Welcome to Confident Growth, the podcast for people who are passionate about productivity and personal growth. I have with me today one of my besties, my best friends, Lisa Crosswhite. Hi, Lisa.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me here.
Oh my God, it's such a pleasure. So Lisa is a fashion entrepreneur and, somebody who I regard as a truly unconventional free spirit.
That is true. And we're going to go into that.
Yes, absolutely. So Lisa, why don't you tell us a little bit about your life journey?
So, because the theme is unconventionality, I might as well give you the real story, not the edited one.
Love it.
I was born in Winnipeg in Canada, which a lot of people don't know. It's in like the Canadian prairies. And I don't remember much about it. We moved to a tiny little town in the prairies when I was 3 till 9. And all I remember is like tons and tons of snow. I was obviously very short at the time, but there would be like walls of snow on like either side of me. Like my father chopping wood, the fireplace. Like it was just very like Northern Canadian vibes.
Wow. And you came from a mixed family, right?
So my mom was the only Chinese person in this tiny town.
Oh my God.
No, there was a Chinese restaurant with good like wonton noodle soup. There's also a Chinese restaurant. Like anywhere in the world, there will be a Chinese restaurant. So she came from a big city and from a more, I guess, illustrious family in China. Her father was a Chinese watercolor painter and also an editor and activist. And during the Cultural Revolution, the family was persecuted by the government at the time, and they immigrated out of China, so into Singapore and Canada and the U.S. But yeah, so my mom ended up in this small little town with my father, and then like there couldn't be a further place away from fashion. It's just like extremely contrasting. And then I moved to the West Coast. So then I moved to Vancouver. For the first time, I had cultural diversity around me. I had my Asian tribe. And yeah, I mean, what's so strange is when I was a child, when I was like 9, 10 years old, I remember drawing particularly fashion outfits. Like I would do hats and gowns and jackets. And in my high school graduation book, I was voted as like, I'm going to become a fashion designer.
Wow.
But it was so funny because it's coming from a context which is so not the usual way anyone becomes a fashion designer.
Yeah, fascinating.
Lack of role models, lack of ecosystem around. But fast forward to now, so I have my own fashion brand, which I based out of Singapore.
Yes, and I'm wearing. So this is Lisa Von Tang.
Amazing model. Oh my
I
gosh.
love this. And by the way, I would say for every single major life occasion in my life, from getting married to receiving awards to my first time in San Francisco speaking in front of 3,000 people, I've always been dressed in Lisa Von Tang.
And that's such a huge honor because beyond being my best friend, you are such an incredibly deep human power woman goddess. And the brand is really inspired by yin and yang. And I feel like you embody both of those to such deep measure. Like the divine feminine that like takes care of her family, nurtures her friends, her community. I mean, I've like been at your home and you've like made me your doll, and like it's just so, meditations together, gong baths, and you're that sister who's always there for you no matter what, and showing up. And then on the yang side, so powerful, like just I don't know, like anyone who could take you down.
Oh my God. Okay,
like, really.
Less about me. Back to you.
But this is about my brand as well, though, because that's why it's such an honor to dress you, because the way you carry it is exactly how, I would design this jacket for. So
thank you. It really resonates with me so much. So like now today, like what are you up to?
So now I'm double hatting as founder of Lisa Von Tang and also director of business development for Antonioli Group. I'm still designing, my brand, and we're going through an interesting shift from evening and regular collections presented at Fashion Weeks. So it's been Milan Fashion Week for the last 4 weeks, and prior to that, New York Fashion Week. So instead of accepting that conventional way of presenting and developing, I've decided to pause that and instead take a lot more time in developing out a perennial resort daily casual line that I really, really believe in. I'm so excited about it. So, and instead of also pursuing international accolades and pushing out in external markets, which is what we've been focused on for the last few years, I want to focus on Asia. My Asia client will still be doing like European accounts too. But I really just want to disconnect from the fashion rat race.
Tell me a bit more. What was that like?
So, and I mean, it becomes a lot more pressurized when you have a small team, limited resources, all of this.
Yes.
So you finally, through 100 miracles, are able to present, and you present.
Yeah.
Like, as you know, and you've been to my shows where it's like always it's pulled off by like a thread at the end. So when you finally get to that point, like a few weeks later, it's like, okay, like we now have to start preparing for the next season.
Yeah.
To be ready on time.
Yeah.
And then before you even present, to have like a pre-collection ready, to have your wholesales ready in time. And I just realized like this is a game that a bigger brand with more resources can play.
Yeah.
But for an independent brand during this time in the fashion world, it's too difficult.
Yeah. So you have to choose your strategy really wisely.
Yeah. And also spiritually, I was also feeling like there's a creative waste happening here. I don't want to keep jumping to the next thing in a hurry to present. I want to take my time and like an artist, like a singer or whatever.
Yes.
When I'm ready for the album, it will come.
Yeah. And actually, I would love for you to share a little bit about your personal growth journey, because that's kind of how we met. Okay, I'm going to share something a bit really funny. You and I, when we first met, you thought that I was like a horrible tie-tie.
I was so scared.
You were scared of me. Tell me a bit more. I was very
intimidated. Okay, so as I remember it, I was in my early 20s. Our friend was having a barbecue.
Yes.
And your ex-husband was there.
Yes.
Drinking and being a fool. Sorry, Mark. And my ex-husband was obviously there.
Yes.
And and then I remember at some point of this boozy barbecue situation, and in your early 20s, by the way, from my vantage point now, like you're not a fully formed you yet.
For sure.
Like, I don't think your brain has stopped developing. But yeah, then I remember at some point, the door opens and this extremely stylish, badass woman walks in and she's not happy. Like your face was just like, ugh.
I probably wasn't.
There was probably something happening that now I understand better. So you walked in, and I don't know if like you left with Mark or what happened, or you would talk to him or something, but I saw you for like an instant.
Yeah.
And you had your Birkin bag, and you came with like, your driver, and then you left, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second time was radically different, which was at Legacy Retreat.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was, I don't know, fast forward a few years after that.
Yes.
I was going through my divorce, and you were separated but still together. I'm not sure. You were running the retreat.
Yes. So what had happened is that I started Legacy Retreat after sort of 7 years into my marriage. Then my ex-husband and I went through that breakup, and then we decided to come back together again. And while we were working through all our stuff, that was when I found Volker, my therapist, and who you know as well, did the Hoffman process and started getting intrigued about personal growth. So that was in the kind of like era where I was trying to make my old marriage work. And I had started this retreat called Legacy Retreat, which is all about personal growth and healing and trying to live life in a more powerful way. So it was very much like a startup experiment. And that's when I reached out to you and Wyatt, your ex-husband, and you guys were going through a bit of a breakup or / possible divorce situation. And I said, well, why don't you guys come on this retreat that I'm running and see if you can both sort out what's going on.
And I loved that you were sharing also this program that had meant so much to you and that you'd been discovering in your own personal development with us. It was the start of my personal growth journey.
Was it the first time?
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
I think before that I had done talk therapy over the years, but I wouldn't call it like a journey.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't feel I really grew from it. And it was incredible because you somehow with Volker and Yutka, and there was only like 10 of us there. So it was like very private. And you created this safe bubble where we could just let all the guard down. And I mean, it was magical, and just dissect what was happening in each of our lives. And also it was amazing seeing other people so vulnerable. It was incredible.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 times, like in my circle I did with you, everyone had a breakthrough moment.
Yes.
And it was so powerful. And I don't think we could have even gotten there had that not been, I don't know, on day 2 or day 3, like a little bit in more when we really trusted each other. Like you formed a really safe bubble.
Yes.
But my moment I still remember from that was I couldn't accept the injustice.
Tell me more.
I couldn't let go of, let's say, the anger or the pain of the injustice that's in the world. Like, why did this thing happen to me when I was a child?
Right.
Why did something happen to someone else I cared about as a child? Like, you know, there's just like that why. It's not fair. And you can extrapolate that into like the whole, like what's happening in Gaza. I mean, there's examples all the time of injustice. And I kept holding on to that until I realized I just need to accept, like, this is what happened. This is the world. This is my experience. And whether there's karmic justice or not, like, you have to just accept reality, and then it's easier to move past it. And I think for a while I couldn't accept that, and therefore I couldn't digest all of the trauma. I couldn't let it go.
Volker once said to me that learning how to feel helpless is part of the human experience. And I so totally rejected it, because if there's anything I'm allergic to, it's feeling helpless. I just cannot. I can't be a victim. I can't feel helpless. But when Volker said to me, is an existential thing. Sometimes in life, we are truly helpless.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing I can do right here, right now that's going to stop what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah.
On that level, many levels. You know, if somebody near to me gets cancer, and I know somebody, one of my friends is, you know, really suffering as we speak, I'm truly helpless. But there is some aspect of life where we have to make peace with that helplessness and go into our era of acceptance.
And injustice is normal, actually. Like, that's the thing that I've also come to accept. Yeah.
Yes. But you recently, we were having lunch and you were talking about being in your season of acceptance.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
It's cute because, so my husband, when he says accept with the Italian accent, he says accept. I love it. I'm like, I accept. I mean, the cases that you need to accept, they happen every day. Like, for example, when you run a business, there's always things that before I couldn't accept. It's like, I don't know, you tell someone to do something for you and they work for you and it's part of their job description, but they just don't do it or whatever. And it's like, but why? I wouldn't do that. And it was so, but it is what it is, you know, and there's a million of these instances that happen that you can't quite put yourself in that person's shoes. And then you're struggling over, but you're like, that doesn't agree with my worldview. Well, it doesn't have to, because the world is not your worldview. I think it's just an acceptance that you're really not the center of the universe, basically.
Yeah. So I want to talk about unconventional life decisions, because you've made quite a few. I mean, for example, you know, we've known each other for quite some time, and we've always been talking about big decisions like, you know, do you have kids? Do you not have kids? Do you, for instance, like, you know, live in this country, or do you like go to, at one point you were kind of considering between Miami and Milan and Singapore. And you've had so many of these kind of like unconventional life decisions, or even like making the decision to, I don't know, start your own fashion brand. Tell me, like, how do you make these life decisions?
I didn't set out to become so unconventional, but on paper, I guess I've become like this, because I think also a gift from my very unusual childhood was that I didn't feel bound by family or tradition or respecting my parents' wishes, because I mean, it was such an abusive upbringing that I more was concentrated on escaping that and building a life that I wanted for myself.
Right. And your mom
even
was
as a child,
quite supportive of that, or?
Yeah, I think my mom was handling so much. She was also recovering from her own trauma, from the past, and working full time as a single mom.
Yes.
So like the resources, like the time, the energy, to be super involved in my life, it just wasn't there.
So you weren't like under the scrutiny
no,
so much.
I mean, she like in our early lives, we had to be top performers. You know this well.
Yes.
So we had to get straight A's, or we would be, in big trouble. We would have to be top in gymnastics, vocal lessons, karate, figure skating, extracurricular math, all of this. It was like very much from like a fear basis, or we would be punished. And when my parents split when I was 12, I feel like it was this newfound freedom because I was just living with my mom and my other siblings. And I don't think she had the energy at that time to impose the regime. And I was like, wow, I can control my own schedule. But it had been so hard baked into me that somehow I still did my straight A's.
Yeah.
But I was also, I had to make choices for myself. I was underage clubbing. I was discovering everything with very little oversight. And so that's probably the roots of my my not feeling I owe anybody or any system in any way, and wanting to really figure out my own Maslow's hierarchy for myself.
So you went through a rebel or bad girl phase when you were a teenager?
Oh, totally.
Right, because it's so interesting. I always think of you as kind of like similar to me, where you're a rebel as well as a nerd.
Oh yeah, no, but they coexist.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I've always known my own boundaries within myself. So, for example, as a youth in Canada, having access to drugs is very easy.
Yep.
But it was never something that I wanted to engage much with because there was still this like instinct in me that wanted to take care of myself.
Yeah.
So although I was in many dangerous situations, I was also modeling before I was in college and traveling alone, and there was a lot going on. I somehow never fell into a dangerous situation, actually, because my instinct, I think, which I honed as a child, was always there of like, is this person safe? Am I safe? So
you're hyper vigilant all the time because you need it to be.
Yes.
So that served you well.
And I think from the rebel standpoint, I used to be a lot more vocal. And I was telling my therapist the other day, I was like, oh, I'm like less like rah-rah now. And she's like, Lisa, maybe you're just growing up. And I was like, wait, is that patronizing or is that true? And I think that's the backside of acceptance in a way. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is that it wasn't hard to make these kind of like unconventional decisions because like it started when like in a way your family system kind of broke apart.
Absolutely.
So like from then on, it was already like, from a tabula rasa, it's like a blank slate. So you could do.
There was like one moment that I'll never forget. It was early high school or maybe mid high school. So in Canada, that's like you're 15, maybe around then. And I think I'd been partying a lot, but still getting my grades. And then my mom was like, Lisa, if you don't do well in school, you don't make it to university, you don't get a job or career, you're not going to live in this house. I don't know where you're going to live, but good luck. And I think she was angry at the time.
Right.
I'd probably come home at like 6 a.m. and woken her up or something. But because she was, I think, poker facing me, but also probably angry.
Yes.
I really believed her. I was like, oh, like I'm on my own. And I think that really inspired me to figure out what I wanted and how I was going to achieve that. And another moment in my childhood, my parents were arguing. And I remember we were so young, they looked at us and they were like, who do you think is right? And I was like, who do I think is right? And from that moment, I started thinking in my head, like, what do I think? Like not sharing it with everyone, not that it would matter at that time. But I think from an early age, I was thinking what resonates with me, like how do I want to live eventually? And what values do I agree in? Or do I believe instead of having that instilled?
not an easy thing to start figuring out when you're so young, for sure. Lisa, you're somebody who is also always sharing your resources and latest routines. And I think like we always like geek out over things that we're trying, things that I'm watching, drinking, eating, whatever, you know. What if you walked us through your daily routine from like the time you wake up in the morning? What time do you get up? What do you do?
Honestly, I'm just off 5 weeks of craziness where I haven't been really great at taking care of myself. But two things that I've been really sticking to no matter what that have like tied me through this busy period is I got this new Japanese skincare brand. I don't remember what it is right now. Okay. I have to tell you later.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. So it's a Japanese company, but I bought it in Italy, and they have like the oil that just like you let it melt in, and then you have like the wash after, like the foaming cleanser. And the key thing about it, because I don't know if the product really makes a difference, is like the loofah, the face loofah. It's an amazing face loofah. So I know that no matter how tired I am or whatever, if I do this loofah thing like a few times a week, my skin stays amazing.
Yeah.
It's because I don't have time usually to like sit there with facials and the things. So that's number one. And the other thing is I'm just trying, this sounds so basic. I'm sorry. I have no like cutting edge stuff for you today.
No, that's great.
Just get into my yoga, you know, just make sure I'm really stretching things out and being present.
Is that your full like physical routine?
My normal, regular weekly routine, like even when I'm really busy, is 3 times a week minimum. I will do 20 minutes of HIIT, inspired by Tracy Anderson.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah, so I have to do that, otherwise I'm a disaster. And then after that 20 minutes of stretching or yoga, whatever I need that day. But I've done so much of this now that I kind of pick and choose what I need.
Do you do like weights?
Yeah, so I do small weights.
Okay, so that's part of the HIIT stuff?
Yeah, so like the 20 minutes, the first 20 minutes, I start with just like, you know that one?
Oh, yeah, the hand flapping. Yeah. I do that too.
I do this.
That was what I did throughout my whole after pregnancy, the whole Tracy Anderson
and I love it because it's also really heart opening.
Yes.
And then when you add in the weights and you're doing all that stuff, it's nice for the heart chakra, but it's also nice for people who they're on their phones a lot.
Agree.
So I always start with that. I always do like a weighted like butt lift and everything.
Yeah.
And then I'll go into the mat stuff more.
I've been doing Melissa Tepperberg
Interesting.
Wood. She has this app called Melissa Wood Health. And she's kind of like Tracy Anderson in that the movements are very similar. They're like it's a small accessory muscles. And then, she does the whole side, like lying down with the butt exercises, like Pilates style.
Okay. How does she compare to Tracy Anderson for you?
Okay. So what I like about her is that she has different routines every day.
Ooh,
so
nice.
like the whole thing, every week when you check in on her app, I'm sounding like an advertisement. I promise I'm not sponsored. Every week when you log onto the app, it's got like your whole week of exercises, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, And what I like about it is that, you can choose from either you just do the day of the week one, or you can do it by how much time you have. So she has like 15 minutes.
And it's a mix of like HIIT, yoga, Pilates, like
it's
that sort
very
of thing?
similar to Tracy Anderson. It's
okay,
like Pilates as well as there's power, and all of that. Okay, I have a question for you, which is very relevant to my audience. A lot of times they write into me and they say, look, I feel like I'm going through a wilderness phase. This is a real message somebody wrote to me. I feel like I'm in my wilderness era and I just don't know like what's next for me. I'm in a bit of a funk. I feel like I've lost my mojo, or I'm just like, and you and I have been through so many eras where that's happened and we're in the wilderness. Like, and I know like I have certain people that I can call on, certain routines that I have, certain things that can snap me out of the funk. For me, it tends to be, I'll call Volker, I'll call my therapist, I'll sign up for a retreat, I'll do something spiritual, I'll speak to a really good friend like you. But I want to know, what's your recipe for getting out of a wilderness phase?
So I feel like I just came out of one myself, and I was speaking with my therapist, and she's like, Lisa, you don't need these sessions anymore. You need to read this book. And the book, it's so telling. It was called it was called The Middle Passage. And then semicolon. From misery to midlife, or like, I don't know, from misery to midlife.
I haven't read that.
Oh my God, it's amazing. The last name of the author is Hollis, Hollis. But anyway, so she's like, check this out. He's a Jungian analyst. And basically, the whole book starts with just like a reality check. It's like, I'm sorry, the world's not what you want. It is what it is. And like back to the acceptance thing. And he kind of just groups all of the dreams and like the wishes of each age group. Like when you're young, when you're a teenager, when your first big marriage falls apart, or your first big love, you know, like when your career aspirations don't turn out, like all of the typical things that just happen.
Yes.
And how people handle them. And so I find it's stunning, because the answer, I guess, is just being really real with yourself and where you're at. And I think often, I don't know if men do this as much as women, but we self-edit. We don't even think, you know, we can think, or we should say these things if they're, I don't know, it can be a political issue. It can be something that you're not sure, like you want to even admit to yourself about your relationship, you know, like all these things that you don't want to spend more time on. It's like basically being extremely bluntly honest with the reality, facing it. And then from there, coming up with a strategy built on what you most desire now. And to do that, you kind of have to go back to your essential self and let everything else crumble. You know, in tarot cards, there's like the death and like the tower. Like
yes.
You kind of just have to let that happen.
And when you say go back to your essential self, do you mean like your values or what?
Your values now, you know, like your values and your desires now. And
it's being like really unabashed. Like really unembarrassed to say that this is it for me now.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I guess this is back to the unconventional life. Like this is what I've done in many cycles. Like I'm just like, you know what, whatever that's going to have to die here, whatever bridges that have to be burned, I'm okay with it, because my spirit needs to live at a high, exciting level. And that's the truth of it.
I love that. So like one of your values you would say is excitement.
Excitement in a way that, like I feel alive. Like my soul is happy and excited for life. It's funny because in Swedish, apparently, I don't know because I don't speak Swedish, but apparently the name for a boner or being horny, I think that's what it is, literally translates into excited for life. And I was like, wow, that's really tantric. That's really wise.
Yes, getting high on life.
But like being switched on for life, for what you're doing and for who you are.
Yeah. If I were to break that down, like what I heard from you is like, okay, it's really being honest with like what pieces of your life or your priorities no longer serve you, and like what you really want now. But like,
I think there's something strange where we live now in a world that's woke to the point of we're in funny mirrors all the time. And it's like, you can't say, like, let's say you accidentally call a trans friend they, but very accidentally, and you'll go, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. And now you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. It can become a big issue and really offend someone and really blow out of proportion of what you had meant.
Yes.
There's many little things that people are scared. They're scared of like, can I think this? Can I say this? Can I even question this?
There's a lot of self-censorship.
Even privately, can I question something, right?
Yes.
And I feel like that external thing is also, it's like mirrored somehow internally, and you just need to be like, no censorship. Like I'm going there, and whatever the result is, I have to be okay with it, because it's life or death in a spiritual sense.
I love that.
Drama.
So purist. So when's the last time you did this? Was it like, I don't want to live in Singapore anymore, I want to move to Milan? Was that an example of like...
That was in recent years, yes. But I think the most recent time I did like a life audit, you know, was leaving my current partner. And the results were so beautiful because I left and I let it all, like I literally had someone pulled a tarot card for me at the time, and it was like death, the tower.
Yes.
You know, it's like so dramatic. It's like the tower and it's like collapsing,
the burning
like
tower,
fire
and there's
everywhere.
people that falling down from the tower.
And I was like, no, but that's correct. I need to walk away from something that's not serving either of us right now.
Right.
And by doing so and being clear on what would need to happen for me in my life, I feel like we both came from a place to make that happen. So
Yeah. But it didn't happen unless you had the courage to basically say, this is the truth of the moment. This is the truth of the relationship. It doesn't work. Yeah. And let's just call a spade a spade.
Exactly.
And then you just walked away.
Yeah. And then it's beautiful because I never even expected that there was a chance that we would both do our own self-development work. And the love would be so strong that we still were like wanting to come together at a higher plane and be productive and happy together. So without that audit and that letting it all fall away, I wouldn't be as happy as I am now.
It's a bit like what Esther Perel says about like the second marriage in a way. It's like when you actually break up and you express who you are authentically, then you can actually have a real marriage. Because then you know who you are and who you're marrying.
You feel it. Like even with my brand, like I was like, oh, I'm scared though because I need to keep doing this Fashion Week thing. And what happens if I change what I'm doing? And you know, I feel like now that I've decided, no, I'm going to dictate the pace and time and how I do my collections. I feel so much closer to it. And I'm so much more excited. I guess back to that word excited.
Yes.
We need to find out the Swedish word I'm talking about.
Yeah. Because you're choosing. Now you're not doing it begrudgingly. You're choosing to do it from a place of power.
Yeah, instead of helplessness.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks so much for sharing that with me, Lisa. And thanks for
having me here.
Thanks for being one of my best friends.
Thanks for being one of my besties. How lucky am I?
You know, it's such an unbelievable thing. I want to take a moment just to share with you that I must say when I met you, I was pretty much a bitch. I was still in my banking era and I had to be really tough because like everyone around me was a guy. It was a male-dominated environment. I was very much one of the boys, one of the bros. And like I had to go have this very kind of like tough as nails exterior. And I didn't have many female friends at all. You know, and I didn't really have many female friends for a long time until I became a mom. But you were one of my very, very first female friends. And you came with a plethora, with the entire universe of female friends, right? And one thing I always admire about you is that you are the glue. You are the absolute center of like so many different ecosystems or constellations of people. Like at your wedding, there were celebrities and socialites, there were artists, there were people who were students, you know, and I was saying hi to all these people who are from radically different social circles of mine that I've only kind of like accumulated through being Singaporean and being here for like 40 plus years. But like you've just come along and like to Singapore and within a very short amount of time, just like attracted all these like multiverses of people that have come together because of you. And I think that's something very special about you where you always are the life of the party. You throw the party, you bring people together and there's so many multitudes and intersections. I always think that if you had another career, you could be a fantastic like club owner.
Ooh, like, well, we never know.
Like a Soho House kind of club, do you know what I mean? Where it brings together different kinds of people because you're always having interesting ideas. Even in like COVID, I remember where we were all stuck at home and suddenly it was like, ding dong, I have this delivery from you. There was champagne, there's a caviar. You had sent over canvases, you had sent over paint brushes and paint. And then we just ended up doing this art jam together. It was so much fun, but you're so full of this like joie de vivre, this like, you know, that's the French version of the Swedish word. It's just like high on life.
Someone told me, I don't know if it was our dear friend Pawan.
Yes.
The amazing astrologer or who, but someone told me that my mission on earth, it was Pawan, was to finally just enjoy life as if I've had many lives of suffering behind me. And I was like, you know what? That doesn't sound vapid. That sounds like I would need to do so much healing and work to get there. So I'll take that.
My teenage daughter idolizes you, by the way. My little teenage daughter, she's like, I think Auntie Lisa is so cool. And because you told her what Pawan, the astrologer, said, which is that you're on your last life and that your mission is like, you've lived all these multiple lives and now you're here to enjoy and just to savor and take it all in. And like my daughter was like, that's so freaking cool.
He also said let's hope this is all true. He said when I turn 50, that's like when all the best things begin.
Oh my God.
Like
amen.
50 onwards is like,
yes, girl, I'm going to be
can't
there.
Wait.
I'm going to be there right next to you when I'm 60.
Oh, it's going to be great.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be like the Golden Girls.
We're like under a duvet, and caviar together, and laksa.
Oh, I love that. And I love you.
I love you too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on Comfort and Growth. And guys, we'll put all the links to whatever random things we've discussed. I need to make a whole list because our conversation is literally just like all good conversations with good friends go. It just goes in every direction. But unfortunately, we've come to the end of our podcast, even though we could talk forever. And I hope you follow Lisa and her amazing bohemian, amazing journeys all around the world and all around the world. And I'm going to put a link to where you can find Lisa in the show notes. But for the people who are listening, where's the best place of finding out about
Instagram.
you? Instagram?
Yeah, at My Essential Self.
Okay, My Essential Self at Instagram, one word. Well, until next time, thank you so much for tuning into Comfort and Growth, the podcast for people who are passionate about personal growth and productivity. And thanks to Lisa, our fabulous guest this week.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.